I spent a lot of time crying. It was just so cute, so sweet and so adorable. Read them, read them. Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Daniela and today we're going to be discussing all of the books that I've read in the month of September. It's been quite a while since I last filmed a video, so I've just found it really hard to get back into that headspace of putting myself back out there on the internet. But moving swiftly on, the first book that I read in the month of September is The Girl Who Chased the Moon by Sarah Addison Allen. So this was one of the books that I rolled on Becca's Book Off Plafond board, and it is a book that I picked up in the charity shop on a whim. It kind of gave me Ocean at the End of the Lane vibes, but I didn't like that book, so I was hoping this one I would enjoy. I gave this book 3 stars. So in the beginning of this story we follow Emily. She goes back to her hometown where her mother used to live. She's never been there before, and the people there are a little bit odd and they're all acting very strange in her presence, but she doesn't really know why. So you kind of find out throughout the book like why that is the case. There's also like magical elements within this book, and then we also follow Julia, who is in her 30s. She went to school with Katie's mother, which is why we're following her perspective, and we kind of get like this separate storyline with Julia. Again, magical elements are involved. It was a fun little read. I enjoyed it. I don't think I would read it again, and I don't think I would recommend it personally, but have a look if it sounds like it's up your street. Next up, I read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's not a 5-star read for me, but I can definitely see how this could be a 5-star read for a lot of people. So in this book we follow Nora, and Nora at the beginning of the book, she's in a very dark place in her life and she ends up taking her own life. When she does this, she's transported to a magical library. Each of the books on the shelves reflect a different life that could have occurred had she made different decisions at certain points in her life. So before Nora fades away completely, she has the opportunity to try out these different lives based off of different decisions she's made, and we basically follow Nora as she goes through and tests out these different lives that she could have led and sees how she feels about them. I found this really interesting, seeing the different lifestyles she could have had, the way her relationships were affected depending on the decisions she made, and how it all would have turned out in each of these different routes of life. I think like the last third of the book I spent a lot of time crying, but it was also kind of really therapeutic at the same time. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed my experience, and I would recommend reading this if you have not tried this yet. I know there are definitely mixed reviews on this book, but personally I feel like this one is all going to be down to like your personal experiences and your feelings, and so you really just have to try it to see if it's for you. You'll probably be able to figure out very soon into the book whether it's something you're vibing with, and if not, just DNF it, but definitely recommend trying it. Next up, me and Andy both listened to the audiobook for I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jennette McCurdy. I gave it 4 stars. It's not a 5-star read for me. I don't think it's something I would listen to or read again, but I did enjoy the experience. I enjoyed listening to Jennette herself retelling these stories from her life. Some of the information in the book is a little bit distressing. It's probably worth checking the trigger warnings before you read this one, but I thought it was really interesting, and it gives a good insight into the behind the scenes of like making TV shows and like acting careers in general, and like how you get into that, and I just thought it was really interesting and I enjoyed it. It was a good read. I know that a publisher has picked her up for 2 other books. She's going to be doing another work of non-fiction and also a fiction, so I am very intrigued by the sound of these, so I will definitely be checking those out. Next up, I read all 4 of the Heartstopper graphic novels. Heartstopper is a coming of age story about 2 young boys who fall for each other. One of them already knows he is gay, and the other boy is just learning about his sexuality. So I'd read the first one online in the summer, and I was feeling very emotional back then because I like cried so much during the first Heartstopper novel, but because, I don't know, it was just so cute, so sweet and so adorable. I absolutely loved it. So because it's been a while since I read the first one, I decided I wanted to reread that and then read the rest of them. So I got them all in from my library and I binged them over the course. I think I read the first 3 on one day and then the 4th one the next day, and I just really enjoyed them. So I gave the first one 5 stars, I gave the second one 4 stars, the third one 4 stars, and I gave the 4th one 5 stars. The first one is just so heartwarming, all the way through. It gave me all of the feels. And then the second and third one, they were not as good for me. They were still really good, really enjoyed them still, but they didn't have those special moments for me. And then the fourth Heartstopper novel has, like, for me, the best moment out of all of them. All I'm gonna say is shower. I absolutely loved that moment in book 4. I'm obsessed. I've also since watched the series. Really enjoyed that as well. Again, favourite section in that was, I'll say shower again, because it's applicable. After Heartstopper, I went back to the library and I picked up some more graphic novels because it just got me in the mood to read graphic novels. Never read graphic novels really before. The only ones I'd read was Heartstopper and the first one in the Lore Olympus series. So I just went on a graphic novel binge. The next one I read was The Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. I don't want to ruin anything, but it's effectively a story about violence and how violence can affect the lives of so many people. The graphics in this book were absolutely beautiful, so emotive. The colour usage was amazing, it was perfect. I had to give this one 4 stars because the imagery throughout the book was just fantastic. Story-wise, I did think it was really good. I think it had a very good messaging. It kind of left the end a little open-ended. You could kind of interpret the ending in more than one way, potentially. And so that was the bit where I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I like that. I kind of would have liked a conclusive ending, but at the same time, it worked. Highly recommend it. Definitely worth your time. Next up, I read When Stars Are Scattered by Victoria Jamieson. I got this from the children's section. It's a graphic novel about these 2 Somali brothers growing up in this refugee camp. I loved the imagery in this. The graphics were beautiful. The colours were gorgeous. The story was good, but obviously because it was a children's graphic novel, it was kind of dumbed down a lot. It was written so that a child could understand it. And the story actually comes from an actual refugee who's told his story. He wanted to share his story and he was approached by Victoria Jamieson and she said, I can't help you with writing a book, but I can do it in a graphic novel format. And so they agreed to do that. So it is based on true events, but it is in a graphic novel format. It's quite long. It took me a couple of hours to read. And then there's some bits at the end, I think, about like the real people. I think there's some photos and a little bit of information from Oseman, who is the person whose story it is. Overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. Next up, I read A City Inside by Tillie Walden. I wanted to try Tillie Walden because I know Alison Pages is a big fan of hers, and this is the first one I picked up. I'm not sure if this was the best choice for me. I don't really know what the other ones are going to be like. I loved the imagery. I loved the colours she used. I loved her art. I just didn't really get this one. I'm the kind of person, I like things laid out for me. Like, I just tell me how it is. I'm not good with stuff where it's like really vague or things are unexplained. I like things to be laid out for me and explained and just like said how they are. So I didn't really get this. That doesn't mean that other people can't get it and enjoy it. But for me, I just didn't get it. Same with The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I didn't get it. So I only give this one 2 stars. But I imagine if I'd have got it, it would have been like a 4-star. Probably, but I didn't get it. Next up, I read Beartown by Fredrik Backman because The Winners was due out in October, which is the 3rd book in the Beartown series and the final book. So I reread Beartown. I first read Beartown in January this year. I read Beartown and Us Against You, one after the other, in January, and already I have reread it in the same year, and I tabbed it this time. This was my first time tabbing a book. I really enjoyed the process. I just like flagged bits that I would like to be able to look back on. I am obsessed with Fredrik Backman. I love his writing. I love his books. I love this series. I bumped up my star rating for this on the reread. I think I gave it 3 stars the first time I read it, and then I gave it 4 stars this time because I already knew all of the characters. There are a lot of characters in these books, but because I knew all the characters well enough, because this is effectively my 3rd time with these characters, I just enjoyed it so much more, and I picked up on so much more stuff that was in this book, and things just meant so much more to me. So Beartown is a small town set way out in the forest. There is another town close by called Head, because they're way out in the sticks, and it's quite cold most of the year in Beartown and Head. So they're into ice hockey. This is an ice hockey town, and the whole town gathers up and comes to all the ice hockey games. They all love it. They all want to win. If the hockey club can win the tournaments, it means more sponsorships, more investment into the town, and it affects the town's economy. And this book kind of introduces us to quite a lot of the characters in the town, and about halfway through this book, something happens that divides the people of Beartown, and we see the fallout from this event that happens about halfway through the book, and how different people behave and react to what has happened. I just love Fredrik Backman. I love how he writes his characters. I love his writing. I'll read you a couple of quotes that I love in this book. So one of them is, "A simple truth, repeated as often as it is ignored, is that if you tell a child it can do absolutely anything, or that it can't do anything at all, you will in all likelihood be proven right." Another one is, "There are few words that are harder to explain than loyalty. It's always regarded as a positive characteristic because a lot of people would say that many of the best things people do for each other occur precisely because of loyalty. The only problem is that many of the very worst things we do to each other occur because of the same thing." These are what I call Backmanisms, my little yellow tabs. He likes to make commentary on life and people and how we behave and society, and I just love his commentary on that. I then had the pale pink tabs are all these sad moments in this book, but bits that made me cry. Red is what made me angry. The darker blue tabs are ones that made me emotional, and then the pale blue tabs are ones for my favourite character. And following Beartown, I reread Us Against You, which is the second book in the Beartown series, and I tabbed this one too, and there's a lot of tabs in this book. I absolutely love this one. I gave it 5 stars. This follows the same characters, the same town, more characters are introduced. We basically follow on from the aftermath of what has happened in Beartown, and we just get to find out more about these characters and these towns, and some more stuff happens. There's further fallout. I can't recommend them enough. I absolutely love them. Again, we have a lot of pink, which is sad in this book, and a lot of blue, which is emotional, and again, stuff for my favourite characters. Another little Backmanism, as I like to call them. It's easy to call that attitude cynical, but cynicism is simply a chemical reaction to too much disappointment. I am reading The Winners currently. I am taking my time with it. I haven't done a lot of reading in October so far. I am terrified about where the book is going to go, and I feel like it could destroy me, the third book in the Beartown series. But yeah, I'm currently reading that, and you will find out my thoughts on that in a later video. But I cannot recommend these enough. I love these books. I love Fredrik Backman. If you like fiction, if you like books with a lot of heart, if you like books that can show like the good in people and also the bad in people, I recommend these. Like, the story is so good. Read them, read them, read the books. So that's it, guys. That's all the books I read in September. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What have you been reading in the month of September? Did you like the sound of any of the books I have mentioned? Have you read any of them already? I would love to have a chat in the comments with you about them. As always, if you liked the video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you next time.